Guilt doesn't knock. It breaks in and always shows up after silence. You don't have to raise your voice or send that one last message. You don't even have to be around, because sometimes the most effective move is to vanish completely. No texts, no calls, no explanations. While they're out there pretending to be fine, smiling for social media, and posting like they've won, the truth is that their guilt is building. And you? You just became the storm behind the silence. You don't need to chase justice. You just need to stand still long enough to let karma find its aim. Imagine this. You're standing in a room with a huge mirror, but the mirror isn't in front of you. It's behind them. The moment you walk out, they don't see your back. They see themselves. Every decision, every lie, every moment they chose to play games with you. Without your voice to distract them, that mirror starts screaming. That's what guilt does. It doesn't whisper, it echoes. And the echo always starts the second you go quiet. Now I know what some of you are thinking, but won't they forget about me? No, my friends, that's the lie we've been fed. That silence means weakness or surrender. If you don't speak, they'll move on without a scratch. Wrong. Real silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's pressure in disguise. When you go silent, you're not disappearing, you're becoming unforgettable. Let me tell you something real. The ones who hurt you don't lose sleep when you cry. They lose sleep when you stop reacting, when you stop defending yourself. When they open their phone and see no messages, when they check your profile and see no updates, that's when their heart skips. That's when they realize you're not waiting anymore. You're not hoping anymore. You're done being the emotional sponge for their guilt. You've handed it back. And now they have to sit with it. There's a reason silence is powerful. It's not because you don't have words. It's because your power isn't in speech. It's in control. You want to destroy someone who expected you to break. Don't post, don't explain, don't plead. Just disappear into your peace. In that silence, let their conscience choke on everything they thought they got away with. When guilt starts doing its dance, it gets clumsy. You'll see weird messages. You'll get, "Hey, just checking in." You might even see them trying to trigger you again just to feel that old control. War. But you know better now. You know that responding is not closure. It's reopening a wound you already started to heal. You didn't come this far just to bleed again. So hold the line. Let the guilt crush them, not out of hate, but because they earned that weight. You've earned your silence, your stillness, your right to walk away without ever explaining again. Write this in the comments right now. My silence is power. Let them hear it through the screen. And if this resonated with you even a little, hit that like button and subscribe. Because we're just getting started. Stay with me. The next few minutes will change the way you see guilt, silence, and power forever. Number 1. They expect emotion. Give them silence. When you say nothing, they hear everything. That's the part they didn't see coming. Not the distance, not the cold shoulder, but the complete absence of noise. They expected rage, not quiet. They expected a scene, not serenity. The modern mind, especially the guilty one, can't handle silence. It panics in it. It spirals because silence forces them to listen to themselves. And trust me, that's the one voice they've been trying to avoid. Imagine this. You're walking out of a room. You don't slam the door. You don't yell. You just leave. The second you're gone, the air shifts. It gets heavy, thick. And suddenly they're sitting in a room full of every word they thought you'd say. Except now those words aren't yours. They're coming from their own head. That's what silence does. It turns into a mirror. And guilty people hate mirrors. Now, here's the lie they want you to believe, that if you don't fight for it, you didn't care. That silence equals surrender. that by walking away quietly, you're weak. But that's the illusion, my friend. They want you to scream, to chase, to bleed yourself dry for answers. Because the louder you get, the more they can blame you for the noise. But when you go still, when you say absolutely nothing, they're left with nothing but themselves. And that is the real sentence. You might be asking, but won't they forget about me? What if they move on like it meant nothing? That fear is the trick. That's the fear they planted in you so you'd never realize your power. Because the truth is this: you become unforgettable the moment you disappear without a sound. You stop being a person they control and start becoming a storm they can't outrun, a ghost they can't block, a memory that grows louder the longer you stay quiet. See, guilty people feed off your attention. They need your reaction to quiet their conscience. You yell, and it justifies their walking away. You chase, and it confirms they had control. You break down, and it gives them relief. But silence, oh no. Silence leaves them with no story to tell, no narrative to twist, no closure to claim. It forces them to sit in their guilt without distraction. That's not peace, it's pressure. They'll start asking themselves questions. Why isn't he saying anything? Did I mess up worse than I thought? Is he gone for real? With every second of your silence, those questions grow teeth. They dig, they bite, and they don't stop. The one thing guilt hates more than being exposed is being ignored. And that's exactly what your silence delivers. A clean, undisturbed battlefield inside their own mind. But here's where it gets difficult. You've been taught to respond, conditioned to explain yourself, to defend your worth. You were raised on the idea that love means fixing, that heartbreak demands closure, that strength is shown in confrontation, but not this time, not here. Silence is not the absence of strength, it's the evolution of it. It's choosing peace over pride. It's saying, I know who I am, and I don't need to perform that for you anymore. Yes, it's going to be hard because silence doesn't feel like a move. It feels like nothing. It feels like standing still when everything in you wants to scream. But you have to trust that in your stillness, their storm begins. You're not doing nothing. You're doing the most powerful thing imaginable. Cutting the cord, shutting the gate, letting their own mind finish what they started. You don't go silent to play games. You go silent because you finally respect yourself more than you want to be understood. That's what stoicism is. It's not apathy, it's armor. It's not coldness, it's clarity. You're not ghosting them out of pettiness. You're ghosting the drama, the disrespect, the cycle. You're not punishing them, you're preserving yourself. The beauty of this move is that it doesn't need explanation, it speaks for itself. Your absence becomes a language, a pressure, a consequence. Eventually they'll understand what they did, not because you told them, but because your silence made them feel it. So let them wonder, let them scroll through old messages, let them rehearse conversations that never happened. Let them regret, and let them break in the very silence they once thought made you weak. You owe no performance. You owe no reaction. All you owe now is yourself. At the end of the day, silence is not passive. It's punishment wrapped in peace. It's the sound of dignity walking away. They will hear it every day, every night. In every pause between their fake laughs and forced smiles, they'll feel it, the space where your voice used to be. And that silence will scream louder than your words ever could. So stay quiet, stay grounded, stay untouchable. Write this in the comments right now. Silence is my power. Let the world know. Show them, show yourself, and show those who underestimated you that the loudest strength is the one that doesn't need a stage. And stay with me because what's coming next will break them completely. Number 2, silence is not passive. It's punishment. The absence of your voice will teach them more than your presence ever could. You might think you're doing nothing, but to them, you're delivering a sentence. A slow, invisible sentence served minute by minute, thought by thought, regret by regret. Silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. If you're doing it right, your silence becomes the loudest sound in their life. Not because it screams, but because it lingers. Let's get something straight, folks. Silence isn't weak. Silence isn't soft. Silence is surgical. It's precise. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to roar because it's felt in the bones. Most people think punishment comes with noise, yelling, blocking, exposing drama. But real punishment is the moment you realize someone is no longer emotionally available and they didn't announce it. They just stopped giving you access. Now picture this. You hand someone your loyalty, your attention, your time. You offer them your full emotional presence like a gift wrapped in trust. And they toss it, maybe slowly, maybe all at once, but the result is the same. Betrayal, disrespect, gains. What do they expect in return? A reaction, a breakdown. One last argument so they can feel validated in their choices. These are days que t'attends. Aujourd'hui, you are yet vive. But instead, you vanish. Not with hate, not with rage, but with calm control. That, my friends, is not avoidance, it's punishment with class. When you don't respond, when you don't engage, when you don't stoop to their level, you shift the power dynamic entirely. You become the mystery, the echo, the gap they can't close. While they're out there trying to convince the world they're unaffected, your absence is doing laps in their mind. It's the silence that stays after the laughter fades. It's the weight that grows heavier with each day you don't come back. Here's what they won't tell you. Guilty people pretend they're fine, but guilt is clever. It doesn't crash in like rage. It seeps in through silence. The longer you say nothing, the more it builds. Like water behind a dam, the pressure increases until cracks start forming, until they can't fake it anymore. They'll scroll back through messages they once ignored. They'll revisit photos. They'll check your online status. They'll wait for the ding of a notification that never comes. In that space, that's where their guilt festers. Because you're not just missing, you're unreachable. You didn't just walk away, you elevated. And they're stuck in the mess they made. This is why silence hits harder than any insult. Because it doesn't need effort. It doesn't need performance. It just needs patience. You give guilt room to breathe, and when it breathes, it starts talking to them in ways you never could. It shows them what they destroyed. It shows them who they lost. And it shows them why they were never ready for someone like you. But let's be real. This isn't easy. You'll have those moments. The itch to reach out, the desire to defend your side, the urge to prove that you were right, that you were loyal, that you cared. But that's not your job anymore. You're not their reminder, their conscience, or their fixer. You're the consequence. And here's the real kicker. You don't do this to make them suffer. You do it because it's the only way to preserve your peace. You do it because the version of you that kept chasing, kept pleading, kept hoping, that version is dead. In its place stands someone who understands that access to your heart is earned, not assumed. That's what they don't expect. They think the punishment will be dramatic. But what really breaks them? It's waking up one day and realizing they can't reach you. Not because you're blocked, but because you've emotionally exited the building. They'll try to test the silence. A like here, a hope you're well message there. A memory shared. Maybe not because they care, but because they're uncomfortable. They're hoping to reopen the door without knock. But you don't answer to breadcrumbs anymore. You answer to self-respect. They say silence is golden. That's wrong. Silence is iron. It's weight, it's consequence. It's the exact opposite of passive. It's active discipline. It's you choosing not to bleed out your peace for someone who made a hobby out of your pain. Let me hit you with something hard. If they feel guilty, let them. You're not here to clean that up. You're not here to soothe the storm they created. You're not responsible for healing a wound they opened with their own hands. Their guilt is their soul trying to get their attention. Don't rob them of that. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is step back and let karma finish the conversation. This is the essence of stoicism. Not just detachment, but calculated stillness. It's the art of letting the world fall apart behind you while you build yourself back in silence. It's knowing that peace doesn't come from being heard. It comes from being whole without needing to explain why you walked away. If you're wondering whether your silence is making a difference, let me answer that for you. Yes, it is. It's working overtime. It's digging deeper than any paragraph you could have written. It's saying, you hurt me, and I healed without you. It's the ultimate plot twist. They expected noise, and instead they got a monument of silence that won't budge. Now look at yourself. Look at how far you've come. You're not reacting, you're not folding, you're not begging. You're rising quietly, unshakably. You're showing the world what happens when a person refuses to be broken by betrayal. So let the silence keep speaking. Let their guilt keep growing. Let them sit with what they did. And you keep moving. Write this in the comments. My silence is discipline. Let them read it. Let yourself feel it. Let the world see what control actually looks like. Because you're not doing nothing, you're doing everything. And what's coming next? Oh, that's when they realize silence isn't the punishment. It's the start of your power. Number 3. Every reaction you avoid tightens the grip. Every time you don't respond, you build a wall their guilt can't climb. Let's make one thing brutally clear right now. They were counting on your reaction. That was their safety net, their backup plan, their cushion. Because if you reacted, yelled, cried, pleaded, explained, they could pretend you were still emotionally hooked. They could twist it, blame your reaction instead of facing their reflection. But the second you didn't respond, the second you stayed calm, quiet and unbothered, that's when everything shifted. You see, every time you don't take the bait, you tighten the psychological grip around their guilt. It's like turning a dial. No noise, no words, just pressure. A slow, steady, suffocating kind of pressure that builds in the silence they never expected. One that grows heavier with every hour you stay ghost. What used to feel like control to them starts to feel like karma wrapping its hands around their conscience. Imagine a boxer in the ring swinging wild punches. That's them looking for a fight, looking for noise, looking for anything that makes them feel in charge again. But instead you drop your gloves. You walk out. You don't even acknowledge the ring anymore. That's not surrender, that's domination, because now they're swinging at shadows. And those shadows, that's your absence, your restraint, your power refusing to perform. You want to know what really breaks someone who thought they had the upper hand? When you stop needing to prove a damn thing. Let's be real, they expected you to fold. They expected that one message, that one "I miss you," that one emotional post they could interpret. But nothing came. No notification. No reaction, just silence. And now their mind is working overtime, filling in the blanks with fear, doubt, and guilt so loud it drowns out every fake laugh they post online. You're not ignoring them. You're letting them meet the version of themselves they tried to avoid. And that version, it's uncomfortable, it's ugly, it's honest. They can't spin the narrative anymore because you're not on the stage. You've left the theater, and all that's left is the echo of their actions. Let's break a lie right now, folks. That voice in your head telling you that not reacting means they won, that if you don't say something, they'll just move on happily, that voice is wrong. That voice was trained by pain, trained by ego, trained by your need to be seen, understood, and validated. But here's the truth. You're not in this to be understood. You're in this to be free. And freedom doesn't come from reaction, it comes from restraint. Every text you don't send is a brick in your boundary. Every story you don't post to get noticed is a step in your healing. Every night you don't stalk their feed is a win in silence. And every breath you take without responding to their games is the grip tightening, the power shifting, the energy returning to you. See, reaction is emotional currency, and they want you broke. They want you overdrawn. They want your energy bankrupt so they can walk away guilt-free and play the victim. But when you don't react, when you don't hand over your currency, you make them pay. Not with words, not with rage, but with the cold realization that they can't control your peace anymore. You mezi, vadi, wangul, furry. That's what starts eating at them. And here's the part most people won't tell you. It gets harder before it gets quieter. You'll feel the pull, the rage bubble, the grief crawl up your throat, the loneliness beg for one last message. But you hold the line, because every time you don't cave, you're not just avoiding drama. You're training your mind to choose peace over chaos. That's stoicism, not numbness, but emotional control, spiritual focus. You're not pretending to be fine. You're choosing not to destroy yourself just to prove you were loyal. You already were, and they blew it. So let them sit in the space you used to fill. Let them scroll through your old conversations, wondering why you stopped trying. Let them feel the cold air where your warmth used to be. Because every reaction you avoid sends another message to their subconscious. You lost me, not because you're cruel, but because you chose yourself. When the silence stretches long enough, that's when they'll start losing it. You'll see the signs, the passive reach-outs, the random reactions, the "how have you been?" Texts pretending to be casual, but you'll know what it is. You'll see the desperation behind the emojis, the regret behind the "just checking in." And what do? Nothing. Because when someone didn't value your voice when they had it, they don't get your words now. You don't respond to guilt bait. You don't reward disrespect with your presence. You don't react, you rebuild. Let me remind you of this. You're not punishing them. You're protecting the healed version of you. The one who finally realized that every message sent to someone who already let you go is a message stolen from yourself, your future, your growth. So let the guilt grip them. Let the silence grow teeth. Let your emotional detachment become their spiritual teacher. Whether they admit it or not, they feel it. Every time you don't reply, every time you stay silent, every time you move on without asking for closure, they feel it in the pit of their stomach. And that's not pettiness, that's power without effort. Now breathe. You've just made it through another round without reacting, without folding, without handing your soul back to someone who didn't know what to do with it. That's strength, that's power, that's discipline. Write it in the comments right now. I don't react. I rise, say it, show it, own. If this section hit like truth, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because the next part is when they start breaking piece by piece. Number 4. They thought you'd break. Now they're breaking. They thought silence meant surrender. They didn't realize it was the sound of your evolution. Here's the thing, my friends. They really thought you'd fall apart. They thought the moment they pulled away, you'd come crawling, that you'd spiral, that you'd break into little pieces they could pick up and toss around at their convenience. But now they're sitting in the aftermath of their own assumptions, and they don't hear your cries. They hear nothing, and that silence is terrifying. They miscalculated. People who operate from guilt and ego think power lives in noise, in emotional explosions, in confrontation. They think the louder you are, the more you care. So when you didn't explode, when you didn't fall into the trap of begging or explaining, they panicked because they thought you'd break, but instead you broke the pattern. And let me tell you, nothing messes with someone's mind more than seeing the person they thought they controlled completely unaffected. You didn't just walk away, you elevated. You didn't just get quiet, you got clear. Now they're the ones breaking, not publicly. No, they won't let you see that. But privately it's chaos, silent guilt, hidden breakdowns, quiet stalking, passive reach-outs disguised as checking in. The truth is, they're unraveling because the one thing they were sure of was your loyalty. The one thing they thought they could always fall back on was your attention. When you stopped giving it, not with anger but with peace, you shattered their reality. You went from their emotional anchor to a ghost. Not because you hate them, not because you're playing games, but because you finally understood that what doesn't respect your presence doesn't deserve your energy. They thought you'd fold. Instead, you froze. Not in fear, but in power. You froze the access, the drama, the attention. And now they're stuck in a loop of their own making, trying to figure out why the one who cared the most is now the one they can't reach. Let's talk about why this hits so hard for them. When someone gets used to you over-explaining, over-giving, over-loving, they start thinking that's who you are. They start thinking it's permanent. They start believing that no matter what they do, you'll stay available, that your forgiveness is automatic, that your door is always open. But what they never considered is that one day you'd stop explaining. One day you'd stop chasing. One day you'd stop answering their silence with your presence. Instead, you'd give them exactly what they gave you. Distance. They never prepared for that. Now it haunts them because every time they check to see if you've moved on, you already have. Not in the arms of someone else, but in the arms of your own peace, your own purpose, your own rebuild. You're not seeking revenge. You're seeking results. And that is what's breaking them down. They'll never say it out loud. Most won't. But that guilt they carry, that slow burn inside their chest when your name comes up, that's real. That's not imagined, and it wasn't caused by anything you said. It was caused by everything you didn't say. Because silence doesn't give closure, it gives consequence. And every day you don't break. Every day you don't reach out. Every day you post without tagging them. Grow without mentioning them. Smile without needing them. That's another crack in their ego. Another brick falling off the illusion they built. You're not being cold. You're being calculated. You're not acting from pain. You're acting from clarity. Yes, it hurts. Not because you miss them, but because you're mourning the version of you that kept trying to fix things that were never yours to fix. You're letting go of the part of you that thought you had to keep proving your heart to people who already decided to overlook it. That's real grief. But here's the twist. That grief is making you powerful. It's shaping you into something they'll never be able to understand again. Unavailable. You were once the one who'd send the long paragraph, the one who'd call just to explain your side, the one who'd tolerate being misunderstood just to keep the connection alive. Now you're the one who says nothing and lets the silence speak volumes. They thought they could do what they did and come back when they missed your light. But now your light's no longer shining for them, it's shining on you. It's lighting your path. And they're standing in the dark, watching the very thing they took for granted become something they can't even reach anymore. Let them break. Let them sit in the storm they created. You're not punishing them, you're just no longer saving them from themselves. You've outgrown the need to be understood. You've escaped the prison of proving your worth. Every second you stay on your path, You remind them of everything they lost. And here's the part that stings the most for them. You didn't break, you broke free. And that freedom is irreversible. So keep moving in silence. Keep grinding, keep glowing. Keep posting like your life doesn't miss them, because it doesn't. Let their guilt grow. Let their ego shatter. Let their assumptions collapse. This version of you, this unshakable, silent, focused version, is the version they never saw coming. Write this in the comments right now. They broke me. I built better. Let them see it. Let the world hear it. Let you remember it. And stay with me, because next, we're not just letting guilt break them. We're letting peace become the punishment. Number 5. If the house is burning down, don't run back inside to save what was already turning to ash. That's what you need to understand right now. If their world is starting to crumble, let it. If their guilt is bubbling, their thoughts are racing, their chest is tightening every time they check their phone and see no message from you, don't interrupt that. Don't throw water on a fire they set. Don't hand a life jacket to someone who laughed while you drowned. You're not a rescuer. You're the reason they're finally facing the weight of their choices. This is the part where most people mess it up. You've held the silence, you've stayed strong. Then suddenly they reach out. A soft message, a meme, how have you been? Everything in you screams to respond. Not because you trust them again, but because your heart still remembers the version of them you once loved. That's the trap. That's the test. That's the moment where your next move either ends the cycle or starts it all over again. See, here's what they're really doing. They're not checking in, they're checking access. They're not apologizing, they're assessing. They want to know, do you still break when I press that old button? Do you still fall for the illusion of change wrapped in casual words and pretend concern? Or have you finally become what they feared most, unreachable? Make no mistake, folks, guilt doesn't hit all at once. It builds. Like a leak in the ceiling they ignored for months. Like a crack in the glass they said was no big deal. Until one day, everything gives way. The fake peace collapses. The smiles crack. The distractions stop working. In the stillness of their nights, your absence shows up like a ghost that won't leave. That's their collapse. And your job is to let it happen. They need to sit in that silence. They need to face the echo. They need to feel what it's like to have no one left to project their guilt onto. Because as long as you keep showing up, even a little, even with just a like, a view, a just wanted to see how you are, you're interrupting the lesson. You're softening the blow. You're handing out emotional painkillers to someone who needs to bleed out the truth they ran from. You were their comfort zone, their emotional safety net. Now that it's gone, they're not craving you. They're craving the version of you that tolerated being mistreated and still showed up. But that version is gone. If you ever want peace to be permanent, not temporary, you have to let that version stay buried. Let them replay the last thing you said. Let them refresh your profile and see nothing. Let them type out long messages and delete them. Let them sit with the guilt, the regret, the awareness that they caused this silence. Let it echo, let it sting, let it burn, because that burn is not your punishment, it's their purification. This is what happens when someone finally realizes that grace has limits, that loyalty has an expiration date. Silence isn't weakness, it's a consequence wrapped in clarity. And yes, it's hard not to rescue, especially when you're the type of person who once gave them everything. But there's a difference between love and self-betrayal, between kindness and submission, between forgiveness and foolishness. You've already been the bridge, don't become the doormat. If you jump in to save them now, you're not proving your strength. You're proving that guilt still works on you, that they can still play the "I've changed" card and skip the actual work, that their tears are your leash, Don't give them that kind of power. Not again. Let the guilt stretch. Let it evolve from discomfort to full-blown realization. Let them truly understand what it feels like to lose someone they thought they could always keep on standby. Only then will they begin to respect the depth of your silence. No, this doesn't mean you hate them. This doesn't mean you want them to suffer. You don't wish them pain. You just no longer protect them from the pain they created. This is discipline. This is emotional warfare with a stoic edge. This is the sacred art of doing nothing on purpose. It's not easy. There will be moments when the silence feels unbearable, when your mind tells you, maybe I should just say one thing. But understand this, the one thing you say might be the one thing that resets their comfort. You didn't come this far just to go soft at the first breadcrumb of regret. You've been through the fire. You've cried those unseen tears. You've begged the universe for signs, for closure, for peace. Now that peace is here, it looks like stillness, sounds like silence, and feels like power. So don't rush to fix what's falling. Don't water dead plants. Don't light up old bridges just because you missed the view. Let the collapse complete itself. When it does, you won't have to say a word. They'll know, they'll feel it, they'll carry it. You were the one who stayed solid when everything else was shaking. That version of you, that quiet, focused, self-protecting version, is who you stay loyal to now. When they reach out in guilt, confusion, or desperation, just remember, you are no longer in the business of softening consequences. You are in the business of protecting peace, guarding energy, and moving forward with calm, unshakable clarity. Write this in the comments right now. I won't rescue the guilty. Say it out loud. Remind yourself who you are now. If this truth hit like a wake-up call, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because next, we'll show them how your peace becomes their ultimate punishment. Number 6. Nothing haunts the guilty like seeing you smile without them. You want to know what real punishment looks like? It's not revenge, it's not blocking them, it's not even ignoring their message. It's walking away and finding peace. Not the fake kind, not the Instagram kind, but the real kind. The kind of peace that doesn't need an audience, the kind that radiates from your body because you're no longer carrying the chaos they handed you. Here's the twist they never expected. Your peace is their prison because they weren't ready for you to heal. They weren't ready for you to smile again without them. They thought you'd stay stuck in grief, paralyzed in pain, scrolling through old messages and reliving every moment. They thought you'd keep checking their stories, waiting for a sign, hoping they'd come back with an apology or a second chance. They thought the silence would break you, but it didn't. It rebuilt you. Now every time they see you smile, every time they notice your glow, every time you laugh in a video or post something unrelated to them, they feel it. The weight, the shame, the consequences of taking someone who was all in and turning them into someone who never looks back. Let me tell you what this really is. This is spiritual karma served cold. It's what happens when someone realizes they're no longer the center of your world. You've moved from heartbreak to healing, from overthinking to discipline, from reacting to commanding your energy like a king on his throne. They expected you to fall apart, and now you're falling into alignment. They thought your silence was a phase, that you were just playing hard to get, that eventually you'd crack, reach out and let the door swing back open. But instead you walked right through that door, shut it quietly, and kept walking. The sound of that silence is deafening to them because your peace doesn't whisper, it roars. You didn't argue, you didn't explain, you just went still. In that stillness, you found something more powerful than revenge. You found yourself. That's what tears them up. Not that you're mad, not that you blocked them, but that you're fine, that you're not chasing anymore, that you're focused, that you're building, that you look better, feel stronger, post less, smile more, that you're doing all the things they secretly hoped you couldn't do without them. Every step you take in peace becomes a reminder of what they lost. You didn't do it to make them jealous. You didn't glow up out of spite. You did it because you were tired of feeling like a prisoner in your own mind. You were tired of replaying conversations that never gave you clarity. You were tired of being emotionally bankrupt from investing in someone who never even brought a blueprint. So, you stopped. You went silent. You were tired. You were tired of being sidearv. You were die. You were tired the mind. You disconnected, not because you didn't care, but because caring was killing you. When you finally chose peace over validation, growth over comfort, discipline over drama, you became dangerous. Dangerous to their ego, dangerous to their pride, dangerous to the story they tell themselves to sleep at night. Because now you're not the same person they left. You've changed, evolved, hardened in the best way, and they can feel it. You used to be predictable, emotional, reactive, available. But now you're unreadable, unreachable, unbothered. The most devastating part, you're not angry, you're just done. Done waiting for apologies, done seeking closure, done trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix. You've outgrown the version of you that needed them to understand. In doing that, you've taken their power without shouting, without a single "look at me now." You just became peace in a world full of noise. That's what punishes them. When someone loses access to your chaos, they lose control. And when they lose control, they're left with only one thing, their reflection. In that reflection, your peace becomes a mirror, a painful one, because it shows them everything they did and everything you became in spite of it. So don't break your silence. Don't lower your vibration just to be seen. Don't interrupt your healing for someone who didn't even flinch while you were bleeding. Stay in your peace. Stay grounded. Stay unavailable. Every day you don't respond, they feel it. Every time you post without reaching out, they notice. Every time you smile and they're not the reason, it burns. No, they won't tell you that. They won't show you that. They'll act cool, cold over it. But deep down, your peace is haunting them. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you're finally whole, and they only knew how to handle you broken. Let them sit in that. Let them feel the silence, the stillness, the space where your emotional energy used to pour out. Let them realize you were the calm they couldn't keep, the peace they disrupted, and now you've reclaimed it. That's their sentence. You're not a prisoner anymore. Write this in the comments right now. My peace is my power. Let it ring out. Let it remind you who you are now. If you're feeling this shift, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because next we'll show you how to rebuild so strong that even if they come back, they can't find a way in. Number 7. By the time they apologize, you'll be untouchable. When they finally come back, don't open the door. Build a new one in a house they can't find. They always come back. That's the part they don't want you to know. That's the part they keep quiet while pretending they're unbothered. While they post stories to show off their new chapter. While they pretend your silence didn't shake them. Deep down, they're waiting for the day they feel brave enough to face what they walked away from. When they do show up with that apology that I've been thinking a lot lately, that classic "I just needed time," you won't even be the same person anymore. And that's what terrifies them the most. See, they didn't think it through. They made their move expecting you to stay stuck. They expected you to remain emotionally frozen in that version of yourself that still needed closure, validation. In that freedom, you've been doing something they never imagined. You've been rebuilding, Not loudly, not performatively, not for revenge, but in the dark, in the silence, in your own peace. While they were waiting for the old version of you to break, you were slowly becoming the version of yourself that doesn't break for anyone anymore. So when they come back, and yes, they will, you won't be bitter, you won't be angry. You'll just be untouchable, because this time, you're not reacting emotionally. You're not melting at their apology. You're not falling into their story. You're seeing clearly. You're listening not to their words, but to your own peace. And that peace, that's the only voice that matters. Now they'll tell you they've changed. They'll say they see things differently. And maybe they have. Maybe they do. But here's the question that stops you in your tracks. Why did it take losing you to recognize your value? Why did silence have to scream before they heard what you were worth? Why did they have to throw you away to realize you were the real thing? Because that's not love. That's regret dressed up in nostalgia. That's guilt asking for a second chance. Your growth is the reason they're even reaching out in the first place. Nothing makes someone reevaluate like watching the person they doubted become the version they now wish they could stand beside. But you're not standing still anymore. You're moving, building, leveling up. Now they're just a memory trying to catch up to a person they no longer recognize. This is where a lot of people fall back into the trap, because the apology sounds so good, so sincere, and it plays right into your past pain. The part of you that wanted to be chosen, to be understood, to be enough. But you already are. You always were. The fact that it took this long for them to realize it is their burden to carry, not your responsibility to fix. Let's break a lie right now. You don't need their apology to move on. You don't need their words to validate your healing. You don't need their closure to keep walking, because you've already closed the chapter with silence, with growth. The gym selfies are nice. The fresh haircut is clean. But the real flex is when you don't even flinch when they come back, when you don't have to block them because you're emotionally invisible to their energy. That's the kind of power you don't post, you embody. The strongest version of you is the one who doesn't need to explain why you're not opening the door. You just don't, not out of pride, but out of protection. You remember what it felt like to give your all and get crumbs. You remember the confusion, the nights you couldn't sleep, the constant analyzing, the way their silence used to eat away at your self-worth. Now it's reversed. Now they're the ones replaying. Now they're the ones wondering. Now they're the ones trying to interpret your silence. When that message finally comes in, I've been thinking about you. I didn't realize how much I lost. I just want to talk. You won't feel excitement. You'll feel clarity. Because the apology doesn't mean anything when you've already forgiven them in silence and moved on in strength. This doesn't mean you're heartless. It means you're finally protecting the version of you that they didn't protect when they had the chance. Sometimes loving yourself means keeping the door closed, even when it knocks politely. So let them apologize, let them explain, let them try, but don't let them back in unless they've earned it 10 times over. And even then, you'll realize you don't need what you've already outgrown. That's where your true freedom lives, not in revenge, not in proving anything, but in the quiet, unshakable realization that you've become the kind of person who no longer tolerates the bare minimum. So stay in your peace, stay in your purpose, stay untouchable, because by the time they come back, and if this hit hard, press that like button, subscribe, and keep walking with me, because next, we destroy the myth that you ever needed their closure in the first place. Closure isn't a door they give you, it's one you learn to lock from the inside. Let's end this with the truth. Most people never say out loud, you never needed closure. Not from them, not from the person who ghosted you like your feelings didn't exist, not from the one who lied, vanished, disrespected your time, and pretended like nothing happened. Not from the one who left you holding all the pain while they moved on like you never mattered. Because closure was never a gift they were going to hand you. Closure was never theirs to give. It was always yours to create. They made you think you needed that final conversation, that one last explanation, that emotional apology where they would finally say, "You were right, I did you wrong, you deserved better." But here's the reality, my friends. If they had the strength to give you peace, they never would have left you broken. If they had the maturity to bring clarity, they wouldn't have shattered your trust and disappeared in silence. What they gave you, the avoidance, the neglect, the excuses, the guilt trips, that was the closure, that was them saying, "This is who I am. Believe me the first time." You see, closure isn't about answers, it's about ownership. It's not about getting them to admit what they did. It's about you refusing to let their silence control your story any longer. Every time you replay the past, every time you look for a deeper meaning in their betrayal, you give your power away. But when you stop needing them to make it right, that's when you get it back. That's when healing becomes yours. Not because they gave you permission to move on, but because you refuse to stay stuck. Let me say this clearly. The moment they left without explanation was the moment they showed you everything you needed to know. That message they never responded to, that day they watched you cry and still turned their back, that was the closure. You don't need an "I'm sorry." You don't need to know why they changed. You don't need to know why they let you go. You only need to know one thing: it happened and you survived it. You didn't fold. You didn't lose your soul. You didn't break beyond repair. You rose quietly, slowly, fully. You learned to stop giving CPR to connections that were already dead. You taught yourself how to walk away from things that didn't clap when you were winning. And now, you've become something they can't touch, even if they come back with every perfect word you once prayed for. Because you're no longer that person. You're not waiting. You're not hoping. You're not looking back. You've outgrown the need to be understood by someone who never saw you to begin with. Closure isn't a phone call. It's a decision, a line drawn in silence, a moment where you say, "Enough. I don't need another reason. I don't need another excuse. I'm done bleeding for people who cut me and called it love." That's when the healing begins. That's when you reclaim the parts of yourself you kept giving away in the name of loyalty. That's when you realize you were the closure all along. So let them live with their silence. Let them carry the weight of what they did. Let them sit in the space where your forgiveness used to be. You don't owe them another message. You don't owe them a response when they finally come crawling back. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself presence. You owe yourself protection. Write this in the comments right now. I am my own closure. Let it be a declaration. Let it be the final word. No more waiting. No more wondering. No more needing the person who broke you to be the one who fixes you. And if this truth hit deep, hit that like button, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this wasn't just an ending. This was a new beginning. Their guilt is still building. Let it crush them while you stay silent. You stay strong. You stay gone.